Hello and welcome to episode 597 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan, as always joined by Evan Silva. We are roughly 10 days into training camp. The hype is flowing. Fantasy drafters are reacting to highlights of one play and a dude looking fast running between cones. Everyone is in the best shape of their lives, including us. Evan, how's it going today?
Yeah, we've also got a preseason game in the books. And we've got a bunch of preseason games on deck this week. And we got a bunch of news items to get to. There's been somewhat significant movement in my top 150 team previews. I think I got about 7 left at this point. It continues to get realer and realer.
It's all happening as we approach peak drafting season. On today's show, we're going to go over Evan's latest top 150 ranking changes and react to all the latest news. We actually have a ton to get to. Let's not dilly-dally here, but before we get into it, want to alert everyone that our early bird bundle offer expires this Friday. Bundle combines Draft Kit Pro, which covers redraft, dynasty, and best ball, with our in-season package, which covers DFS and redraft at the lowest possible price. Again, the price on that bundle will be going up Friday, so if you're playing both season-long best ball and DFS, the time is now to get in there on the bundle. Also, wanted to give a shout out to our friend JJ Zacharysen's pod. JJ will actually be on our pod next week, but I do want to recommend his late round fantasy football pod. Honestly, don't recommend a lot of fantasy football podcasts. Don't listen to a lot of other podcasts, but if you like our pod, I suspect you'll like JJ's as well. Really good at reviewing historical data and conveying how it applies to this season, especially for season-long formats. Episodes are focused and quick. If you're looking to add another podcast to your rotation, search Late Round Pod wherever podcasts are found. All right, Evan, I thought the biggest news lately was the official Alvin Kamara suspension. We were projecting 4 games, and that's the way we were projecting it pretty much the entire offseason. We ended up 1 game heavy. He gets 3 games. Evan, how did you react to this in the top 150 rankings between Kamara, Jamal Williams, Kendrick Miller?
I gave him a pretty significant bump up. I moved him from RB28 to RB22. And I moved Kendrick Miller down correspondingly. I'm keeping Jamal Williams the same. I think he's going to be probably the clear lead back, at least in the first 3 games. So you'll be able to get 3 RB2/flex starts out of him. He's going to get the ball at the goal line. He could play in the passing game a little bit. And then thereafter, I think he's probably going to remain involved because, we always talk about it like coaches love to put Jamal Williams out there because they trust him. But Alvin Kamara, I thought his suspension would be 4 games. I thought that there was an outside chance, and Rap Sheet had mentioned this, that it could be 6 games, but it wound up being 3 games with a chance to maybe reduce it to 2 on appeal. So I think that he was a favorable outcome for Alvin Kamara, and that's why I moved him up. And I've been drafting him. I mean, I started drafting him somewhat aggressively in the days leading up to the suspension announcement. And I think that if anyone was doing the same on Underdog or wherever you're drafting right now, I think you gained a little bit of an edge.
Okay. I want to talk about Alvin Kamara. Forget about the suspension for a second. I did not love what I saw from Alvin Kamara last season. He's now 28 years old. I thought he did not have a good season. He lost significant reps in the pass down, especially, which was shocking to me, to Mark Ingram last year. By the way, Mark Ingram is now doing games for Fox. And so that was concerning to me. Do you have any worry that Alvin Kamara is at the end of the line here or getting towards the end of the line? You do have him up at 64 overall right now, which is going to be a pretty steep cost.
Yeah. I would say that just based on what we've heard, and I mean, we have pretty strong connections. We have a guy who, we're tight with and goes to every practice. And he says that Alvin Kamara looks explosive. And you remember we had Nick Underhill on the show last year at least once. And he shared our concerns that he thought that maybe Alvin Kamara was, hitting a wall or, late in his career, or, he was concerned about his usage and his on-field effectiveness. And so far in training camp, Alvin Kamara looks like the old Alvin Kamara, really based on multiple reports, but certainly in our conversations with Nick. And so again, I'm optimistic about him. I like drafting him now as a low-end RB2. He is going to lose touches to the other guys, Jamal Williams. Kendra Miller, by the way, Nick says Kendra Miller has looked really good since coming off the NFI list. He's an explosive dude, and he didn't catch a lot of passes at TCU, but apparently Kendra Miller has looked really good in the passing game so far in training camp. But yeah, I mean, that's where I stand on that backfield. It's a convoluted backfield, but Alvin Kamara, I think, is going to be clearly at the top.
My take is that at this age and this point in his career, I'd love to see Alvin Kamara used in a more specified role. Let's get him out there and get him 6-7 targets a game. Let's use him in short yardage where he's been so good in his career. And so if he can just get that, just be like the straight passing down back when he comes back, there's a lot of value in that. And he'll certainly get some base work as well. So, I think 64 would be a little bit steep for me overall on Kamara, but I was taking him 8th, 9th round, no problem before. And if he slips there, I'll take him again. Those prices might be gone though. Let's move to the Jonathan Taylor situation. So obviously we've already talked about the Jonathan Taylor holdout stuff. The new news is Zach Moss broke his hand. He's out 6 weeks. They added Kenyon Drake. They still have Evan Hull, a pass catching kid that they drafted. And they have Deion Jackson, who we remember from last year. The bitter dispute between the Colts and Jonathan Taylor and his agent right now has shown no signs of letting up. Again, it is a month out. Deadlines make deals. I could still see, and I think the most likely outcome is Jonathan Taylor agreeing to some restructure type thing like Saquon Barkley got, where he gets a little bit more guaranteed money or something, and then they move forward. That's my base case. I don't think that's like a slam dunk to happen, though. How are you handling Jonathan Taylor right now? What did you think of the Kenyon Drake signing, and any other thoughts on Colts backfield?
Kenyon Drake was just like a cheap veteran that was out there that they added to the roster because, they shortage of bodies, so you need guys to practice. Maybe he'll end up making the team as a third stringer. There actually was a report though that the Colts and see, I feel like the Colts stance is starting to soften a little bit because there was a report that at very least the Colts are open to exploring a negotiation of Jonathan Taylor's contract. And dude, they're running out a rookie quarterback who made 13 college starts. This offense needs to be built around putting the ball in Jonathan Taylor's belly and running it relentlessly up Quentin Nelson's behind. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's how the offense needs to be formulated. And I think at the end of the day, they probably are going to end up reaching a compromise. Money gets this stuff done.
Yep.
And I think that at the end of the day, Jonathan Taylor is actually going to get a raise. That would be my prediction.
Yep. I take Jonathan Taylor when he falls into round 3. He doesn't always get there, but I certainly take him when he falls there. If Jonathan Taylor doesn't show up, any take on what happens there between Zach Moss, Deion Jackson, Kenyon Drake, Evan Hull? I mean, I feel like it would just be some awful committee that would not be very productive.
Yes, that's what I would think. Jonathan Taylor has concerns that go beyond this contract situation, though. Anthony Richardson's throw rate to running backs at Florida was like eye-poppingly low. Mm-hmm. And also there's just not going to be pass volume in this offense because the way that the Colts are going to want to play, again, with their developmental rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
So Jonathan Taylor isn't going to catch passes. He could be out there as like an almost full-time back, and his catch projection should be maybe for the season like low 20s.
Yeah, Evan has JT still in there at 23. I'm sorry, we have JT at 23 overall in our top 300s. Evan has JT at 28 overall in his top 150. Let's go to Breece Hall. So, the Dalvin Cook rumors really tanked Breece Hall's ADP. The latest rumor on Dalvin, though, is that the Patriots are out on him. Jets and Dolphins are still in, but only at the right price. And I think the price that Dalvin thinks he's worth versus what the Jets or Dolphins think he's worth, I think there's a pretty wide gap there. So, I don't think anything is imminent on Dalvin and the Jets. I also think that the Jets know Breece Hall is simply a better player. Obviously, they've been following Breece Hall's rehab closely. Latest on Breece Hall is Robert Saleh said he should be back practicing in 1 to 2 weeks. I still would consider Breece Hall a question mark to be a full go for week 1, but everything seems to be roughly on track. How have you reacted to Breece in the rankings on the Dalvin news and the latest knee reports?
I haven't moved him. He is pretty low, I think, compared to ADP in my rankings.
Yeah, you have him 38 overall.
Yeah. I drafted him the other day, and I think that was maybe the first or second time that I've drafted him out of like 30-something drafts. So I'm playing it pretty cautious. It still bothers me that the Jets showed interest in Jamal Williams in free agency, that they were pretty widely connected to Jahmyr Gibbs, at least based on reports after the draft. They did wind up drafting Izzy Abinaconda. They are bringing back Michael Carter and Zonovan Knight. Both of those guys are the past 2 seasons have given them pretty quality snaps at tailback. So
by the way, both Carter and Zonovan were rested in the preseason games. So I think they're like at least somewhat in the plans.
Yeah. So, I'm largely letting other people draft Breece Hall. What are you doing?
Yeah. I've used this as an opportunity to buy the dip on Breece Hall. Like he's been getting to the 4th round sometimes, and that's a screaming buy to me. I think end of 3rd round, I'm still buying, but yeah, the rumors and stuff aren't great. I just think if Breece Hall is actually 100%, I mean, he's one of the few backs that you can get here in these middle rounds that actually can finish as a top 5 running back this year. So yeah, I still like it, but I'm certainly watching the situation closely. I definitely want to see him back out there, but I'm not too worried about the Dalvin stuff right now. Speaking of knee injuries, I don't know if you saw this, Evan. The Broncos are claiming that Javonte Williams is like ready to go and is going to play in the 2nd preseason game, hopefully, allegedly. It's just shocking to me. I mean, he's like 10 months removed from a torn MCL, ACL, and PLC. And I talked to Stefania about this. Hopefully you guys all listen to the podcast. My take on Javonte has been let other people draft him. They want to bet on an outlier. An outlier will be recovering in 10 months, 11 months from this injury. If other people want to bet on an outlier, that's fine by me. I'm getting kind of queasy, though, that this guy's going to shove it down my throat, Adrian Peterson style, and he's going to be some freak outlier. How have you been handling Javonte Williams in the rankings?
Haven't moved him. Have considered moving him up. I don't think I've drafted him once so far this year, though. So my stance on Javonte Williams has been the same as yours, and I look. I understand that. I think he's got a real chance to play in the first game. But I also think that he is most likely going to be a committee back. There's still the risk of setbacks. I mean, the Broncos, first of all, they've gotten absolutely hammered with injuries already. So it's a little bit surprising that they're not playing a little bit more cautious with Javonte Williams. But hey, there are doctors there that, probably say he's looking good. I think he's going to be a committee back with Samaje Perine at very best to open the season.
Yeah, agreed. I think if he's actually healthy, talent will win out and he'll have a bigger role than Samaje Perine in the second half of the season. Totally agree. First half, even if he's ready, it'll be in a committee. If he plays in the 2nd preseason game, I mean, he better play week 1. I mean, don't throw the guy out there for the preseason game and then have him not be ready for week 1. I'd also say there's a big difference between working in practices, taking a day off, working in practice, take a day off, and then taking hits and then playing the very next week, and then taking hits and playing the very next week again. There's a big difference there. So I've still been out on Javonte, and I feel okay about it, but I'm getting a little bit queasier. The big news out of Broncos camp, other than that, was a sad story. Tim Patrick tearing his Achilles in a training camp practice. He is done for the year. Also, KJ Hamler finally got back from his torn pec, but had a heart issue. He is out of the picture now as well. I talked a bunch about Marvin Mims on Market Monday. Hopefully you guys already caught that. But Evan, let me get your take here on the fallout of Tim Patrick blowing out his Achilles.
Yeah, so I was going to be completely out on Courtland Sutton. I'd even pulled him out of the top 150 altogether. He's back in, and he's like right around pick 100. I think he's like 105 or something like that.
Yeah, you have Sutton 107, wide receiver 46.
Okay, yeah. And then I have Marvin Mims, I believe, 1 spot ahead of him.
You have Marvin Mims 108. You have 1 spot behind. Yeah, right there.
1 spot behind. Yeah, I wanted to put them back to back. Again, and I did move. I ticked down Jerry Jeudy a little bit after the Matt Harmon thing, not significantly, but after the Matt Harmon show, dropped him down just a little bit. But moved Courtland Sutton and Marvin Mims way up because they're locked in major roles right now. That's your 3 receiver set: Marvin Mims, Cortland Sutton, and Jerry Jeudy. And there's no, there's no wiggle room there anymore because the 4th and 5th receivers are out of the picture now.
Yeah. I think Marquez Callaway, who Sean Payton obviously knows from New Orleans, will be in there as the wide receiver 4. I talked about Market Monday. Like, I've been part of the steam that's been driving Marvin Mims ADP up. Like, I've been taking a ton of Marvin Mims. Again, the first thing that Sean Payton did, first draft, was trade up in the second round to get Marvin Mims. I do think Sutton is getting more and more interesting. Like, that gap, and we talked about it with Harmon, that gap from Jeudy to Sutton. I mean, we're talking 60 plus spots between Jeudy and Sutton. It's just so wide. And I do think Sutton will play that X role that's been successful in Sean Payton's offense. So, I like Marvin Mims. I'm okay with Sutton. I'm okay with Jeudy where they go. We're just getting to a spot here, just like last year, where it's a lot of mouths to feed for a pass game that was so bad last year. Do think it'll be much better under Sean Payton, though.
I think it will be Cortland Sutton and Marvin Mims on the outside. Again, Sean Payton kind of envisions Marvin Mims like Brandon Cooks. And then I think that it will be Jerry Jeudy in the slot primarily.
Yep. All right. Let's get to one of the biggest changes in Evan's top 150, and it comes in the Jacksonville backfield here. Tank Bigsby is up to 103 overall in the top 150. Evan, talk to the people about making such a big move here on Tank Bigsby.
Well, to an extent, I'm buying camp hype here. But I just, the more I thought about the situation, we had Dwayne McFarland on the show. No one's better at, diagnosing utilization in backfields. We talked a bunch about the Jaguar situation. And, you just look at the holes in Travis Etienne's game, and it's very clear in 2 areas. And Tank Bigsby is really good in both those areas. Tank Bigsby caught a ton of passes in his college career, and he's really good in short yardage goal line. And those are the 2 big holes in Travis Etienne's game. So I ticked Travis Etienne down from, I think, RB13 to RB17. He's still in the same tier. I did not move him out of the tier, but he's at the back end of the tier. And before, he was at the front end of the tier. It's a tier of like 6 or 7 RBs. Yeah. And then I moved Tank Bigsby way up. I had him previously in the 130s, and now he is in the top 100.
Yep. Evan now has Breece and Jahmyr Gibbs ahead of Travis Etienne, referring to that tier, and Najee and Aaron Jones. I would certainly agree. I'd definitely take Breece and Gibbs over Etienne. If you wanted to take Etienne over Najee or Aaron Jones, I wouldn't hate you for it, but I do like the way Evan has it here. All these guys kind of clustered together.
The scouts that I know love Tank Bigsby. I mean, they're like, this dude is an absolute baller. I kind of want to start drafting him really aggressively. And I think I'm going to do that.
His ADP has been flying up. I think Bigsby is a guy that in home leagues, more casual home leagues, he will be available way late. And one of our favorite sleepers, by the way, staff sleepers and busts are out right now. Evan's working on his own sleepers and busts, but staff sleepers and busts are up right now. And a little teaser, Tank Bigsby is in the mix. Check that out if you have Draft Kit. And by the way, Tank Bigsby caught 51 balls over his final 25 college games, which is actually a lot. I mean, for a college player. And so, yeah, I love Bigsby too. The price is kind of getting away from us in best ball right now, but I'm optimistic that Bigsby will be there for us in home league type spots. All right. Another reasonable bump up was Brandon Aiyuk. And this is one that everybody loves. Brandon Aiyuk. I think Brandon Aiyuk is a very, very good player. I totally get it. When you start to think about the way San Francisco wants to play offense and all the good players that they have who can catch the football, it gets hard. People get squeezed out on a week-to-week basis all the time. George Kittle gets squeezed out. Debo gets squeezed out. Aiyuk gets squeezed out. It just happens all the time. And so I get uncomfortable with Aiyuk, but I get it. He's an awesome, awesome actual talent. You moved him up to wide receiver 31, now 72 overall on Aiyuk. Tell the people why you decided to make that move.
For a variety of reasons. If you think about the progression of Brandon Aiyuk's career, it kind of entered the league a little bit immature, maybe. Remember he clashed with the coaching staff. They were playing they were running out Trent Sherfield ahead of him in training camp one year. He quietly had a really nice season last year. He went for over 1,000 yards. He scored 8 touchdowns. He is now entering his age 25 season. He's a guy who, when he came out of Arizona State, he was pretty young. So I think he's probably, hit the mature button. And then if you go back and look at Brock Purdy, where he distributed the football last year, and some guys were injured, and so that leads to just more opportunity. But Brandon Aiyuk was Brock Purdy's dude. And the reports continue to be overwhelmingly positive on Brock Purdy. Like, he's starting week 1, I think.
Yeah.
So all those factors. And then we brought on Matt Harmon. And Matt Harmon really, really likes Brandon Aiyuk. Like, he's like, a big-time breakout is coming. I mean, I think you could call last year over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. That was a breakout. And now Brandon Aiyuk has a chance to ascend even more with this dude with whom he showed like considerable chemistry in the second half of last season. Now they're going to get a full season together.
I did a 2K buy-in draft last night with Dink and Sam Sherman. And by the way, we're going to have Evan Leone, Man vs. Machine, do a live draft here relatively soon. But we did take Debo at the 3-4 turn. We had the 12 picks. So when it got back to us at 3-4, we took Debo. Aiyuk went a few rounds later. I'm curious who you prefer at cost there, Evan. Debo kind of at the 3-4 turn, or Aiyuk where he goes, which is usually like 70s.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
I like both.
Yeah.
Can I answer that way?
Sure. And then you also have Kittle in the mixer. You have Kittle 49 overall. And the point I'm just trying to make is somebody's going to get squeezed out on a week to week basis.
And that will happen. And Debo is a little bit boomer bust, and George Kittle is a little bit boomer bust, and you're just going to have to kind of live with that.
Yep. Staying in the NFC West, Cooper Kupp gave everyone a big scare, went down with a hamstring injury. We never really panicked on this one. We never really moved him too much. I don't think Evan did either. I did ask Stefania about the accumulation. I mean, Cooper Kupp has had an ACL tear. He had a really bad high ankle sprain last year that required tightrope surgery this offseason. Now he's having a hamstring issue. His usage is so high. He's getting up there in age. I get when people say that they want to back off Cooper Kupp at 5 overall. I can't do it personally. Like, I think the ceiling is literally one of the best wide receiver seasons ever, because that's what he was on pace to do last year and what he did the year before. But I get it if people are a little squeamish on Cooper Kupp right now. What are your thoughts on him in light of the latest hamstring issue for Cooper Kupp?
Yeah, I did like that Sean McVay came out and said that it's just a day-to-day injury. That gave me a little bit more optimism. The reason that he is the wide receiver 4 overall in my rankings is because of the age thing, because of the accumulation of injuries. And I did tick him down a little bit in the 150. I did not move his ranking. He's still the wide receiver 4. I just moved him behind Christian McCaffrey and Austin Eckler.
Yep.
But then I was just on the clock in an Apex Experts League, and I was at number 104, and I took Cooper Kupp. Now, This is a super wide receiver heavy league. It's you start 4 wide receivers, and everyone drafts the heck out of wide receivers, and it's full PPR. So that definitely influenced my decision making. I thought long and hard about taking Christian McCaffrey at number 4, but ultimately I felt like I had to take Cooper Kupp at number 4. So that's what I did.
All right. I agree there. Okay. Let's go to Rashod Bateman, man. This is getting concerning to me. Rashod Bateman's still not practicing. And like Zay Flowers is reportedly playing really well. Odell is out there in the mix. And Rashod Bateman with this Liz Frank there thing is just not out there. I right now would prefer Zay Flowers over Rashod Bateman. I know there's some Odell stands out there. That is not me. But with Bateman out for this long, and I don't want to go overboard. When I say this long, it's only been like 10 days of camp. We still have a month until the season starts. So it's not like anything crazy. But I am starting to get a little bit worried here on Bateman. How have you been thinking about Bateman, Flowers, Odell?
Yeah, and Rashod Bateman, when he has been on the field, his first 2 NFL seasons, like he's been really efficient. I mean, he's been a good player. It's just this is another situation where it's like all kinds of lower leg injuries he's been dealing with, and he's missed considerable time, and he got banged up in college, and it's just he's not out there practicing. There's a new offensive coordinator. Is he going to open the season in two receiver sets? Because you need to be in two receiver sets on a team that can play multiple tight ends.
Yep.
You got to be in those 2x2 formations. So if he opens the season as the number 3, his playing time is not going to be great, and he's not going to be usable in fantasy football, even though I think we all collectively kind of believe in this Ravens offense. Is it concerning to you at all that there have been reports that the Ravens offense has not been clicking so far?
Not really. I mean, it's just so early. I don't put a lot of stock in these training camp practices either. But yeah, I do think that like Zay Flowers getting the first-round draft capital with the new coordinator and coming in and being healthy, I would take Flowers over Bateman. That's not the way Evan has it right now in the 150, and that could prove to be right. Like if Bateman is completely healthy, 100%.
I'm going to make that change.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Live change as we speak here in the to Evan's top 150 in the Ravens wide receiver core.
One situation, Odell went down in practice today. Did you see any updates on him?
I have not. Okay. I have not. I saw the Jerome Ford thing happen today, but yeah, we're not going to try to overreact too quickly here on these injuries that happen in camp. We'll see if it's anything serious on Odell or Jerome Ford. Oh, speaking of Ravens camp, this J.K. Dobbins thing is a bit weird. He has not been out there either. He's on the PUP list, which suggests an injury, but I don't know that it's really an injury. I think maybe, he's probably sore, his hamstring or his knee or whatever, but I think he pretty much just wants to sit out to make a light protest on his contract, which he's not going to get a new contract. He has no leverage. And also just why go out there, man? I mean, he got hurt in preseason. Like, I don't think he necessarily needs it. So I have not been too worried on J.K. Dobbins. He has been sinking like a stone in ADP. I think it's been a good time to get him. But yeah, how have you been handling J.K. Dobbins? Again, just like Bateman, we have not seen him at Ravens practice at all.
I've been pretty low on him since the outset, and I've, got no reasons to come up on him. I actually like Gus Edwards as like an RB4 right now.
I talked about that on Market Monday. I think for like last round running backs, Gus Edwards, Zamir White, Ty Chandler would be my 3 favorites for last round running backs if they're there.
Leone was making fun of me for having Gus Edwards too high in the top 150. So maybe once he finally gets back from his vacation, he can come back and capitulate a little bit.
Do you think the Melvin Gordon signing means anything? I've seen some roster projections that Melvin Gordon is actually projected to make the team.
Okay. He'd be the number 4 then.
Yeah.
And also this dude, Keaton Mitchell, undrafted free agent, has been generating some hype.
Yep.
I think that it's an insurance signing, I guess similar to what the Kenyon Drake signing in Indianapolis. I don't know that Melvin Gordon really has anything left to offer really, other than a veteran guy who can, take practice reps.
For sure. All right. JuJu Smith-Schuster, no one wants to hear about it, right? Everybody thinks he stinks. And maybe he does stink, maybe. But he was the subject of a lot of negative stuff because he was dealing with the knee issue during OTAs. DeAndre Hopkins was rumored to go to the Patriots. We get to camp, though. JuJu has made 9 straight appearances in practice, 9 straight days of practice for JuJu, locked into the number 1 wide receiver role for this team. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins chose to sign with the Titans, not the Patriots. I know it's not fun. I know it's not sexy, but you can get a wide receiver 1 in like the 11th or 12th round in JuJu Smith-Schuster. And ideally, I already have my wide receivers taken care of before then. But if I don't, I've kind of been clicking JuJu. How have you been thinking about JuJu Smith-Schuster in your rankings?
Like a wide receiver 4 who has a chance to finish as like a wide receiver 3, or maybe a very low end, unfun wide receiver 2 at the end of the season, just if he stays healthy and plays all 17 games. I've actually been drafting a decent amount of Devontae Parker because he's super cheap. Just not really excited about JuJu Smith-Schuster.
Yeah, I think the guys that are locked into roles on New England are JuJu, Ramondre, Hunter Henry. Beyond that, it's kind of hard for me to feel too good about anyone else. I get the Devontae Parker stuff. Hard for me to feel too good about that. Obviously, he goes very, very, very late. But yeah, we should mention the Hunter Henry hype just getting completely out of control. I do think Hunter Henry will be an every down player and just a good football player that you can get as a starting tight end in the last round. So yeah.
Yeah, and apparently Demario Douglas,
Yeah.
undrafted free agent, I'm sorry, 6th-round pick, real little dude, 5'8", 192 out of Liberty, has been outplaying Tyquan Thornton, who they drafted in the 2nd round last year. That's concerning. I mean, they have a very long and well-documented history of blowing wide receiver picks.
Yeah. Tyquan Thornton is down bad right now. Down bad. Talked about that on Market Monday too. You guys can check that out. This was one that flew under the radar. I don't really think anybody really was talking about it, but reports out of Chargers camp is Big Mike Williams has been playing more slot, which it doesn't make a ton of sense to me because I don't think Keenan Allen at this point in his career can play anywhere else. So if Big Mike's getting more slot reps, like what's happening to Keenan? So I'm not sure this is sticky year over year, but I do like to hear that they're moving Big Mike around a lot. We've been way higher than market on Big Mike for a while here now, and just higher than market on the Chargers offense in general this year. Any new thoughts on Big Mike, Keenan, Quentin Johnston, anything like that?
No, I think that Big Mike at the end of the day probably will be like a 70% perimeter player who can move into the slot 30% of the time. It's a way for them to, get him more high, a few higher percentage targets each game. And maybe, are they concerned about Keenan Allen's health? Like he's 31 years old. He's had a lot of lower body stuff. So if something were to happen to Keenan, Big Mike would crush.
Yeah. Evan has Big Mike very high in his top.
Very high.
150, 35 overall here on Big Mike. And I do think some getting easier catches, not like the Michael Gallup, George Pickens stuff. Like just get Big Mike some easier looks, I think would make a big difference. So that's why I thought that one was very notable. Chiefs wide receiver situation with Kadarius Toney sideline. We have seen massive bumps in ADP on Justyn Ross, a pretty big bump in ADP for MVS, little bumps on Sky Moore, Richie James, Rashee Rice. How have you been thinking about Chiefs wide receivers here in the wake of Kadarius Toney's injury? And by the way, Kadarius Toney, as expected, you can now get him in like the hundreds.
Well, it sounds to me like Sky Moore is almost locked in as the Chiefs slot receiver, a role in which JuJu Smith-Schuster had 933 yards last season. So that gives Sky Moore like a chance to be a factor. We had Matt Harmon on, and he thinks that despite that, historically slow rookie season, that Sky Moore has a chance to be a good player. And it's also true that Andy Reid has taken it easy on rookies. So you could tell yourself a story where Sky Moore can be something of a breakout second-year player. Rashee Rice and Justyn Ross, who was once a massive recruit to Clemson and had a big first season, then had durability problems there. Those guys had generated hype, but it's been virtually all with the second team. They mix them in with the first team, but virtually all with the second team. Richie James, he's a good little slot receiver. He's played for, a bunch of teams. We know what he can do. But that's how, and then MVS is locked in because of his his unique skill set.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way that I'm viewing the wide receiver core. Kadarius Toney is just like, it's just always something with him. So you know what you're getting into.
Yeah, I've been, even as Kadarius Toney's price has dropped, I've kind of not been taking him as much. I do take MVS in spots where I need him. I talked on Market Monday about Justyn Ross, and I think Sky Moore and Richie James and Rashee Rice are priced pretty appropriately right now. Evan does have Sky Moore one spot ahead of Toney in his rankings, and then Rashee Rice not far behind. Has all this talk about Chiefs wide receivers made you think about moving Travis Kelce up at all? Every time I'm like thinking about the Chiefs wide receivers, I'm like, God, Travis Kelce is going to get another 160 targets. Like, how does it not happen? Have you thought about more Travis Kelce at all?
Oh, I have him as a first-round fantasy pick. So, yeah, I think Travis Kelce can have a real nice year.
Go back to the first-round player-by-player debate for more on the Travis Kelce debate. All right. Quote from Jonathan Gannon, Cardinals coach, says, and, I hate this coach speak stuff. What's he going to say? But I just thought it was annoying. Jonathan Gannon says he's excited to watch James Conner get behind this offensive line and cram the ball vertical. I mean, is anyone on earth excited to watch James Conner get behind the Cardinals offensive line and cram the ball vertical, whatever that means? if you try to cram the ball vertical with James Conner, not only is it going to be inefficient, I think, but he's not going to last the whole season. I think I've taken James Conner 0 times. I don't plan to start, but I don't disagree with people who say, listen, you can get 20 touches out of James Conner in September every week in like the 7th round. And I get that take. I'm playing more for the late game, the long season. So yeah, any movement for you on James Conner?
No. I mean, I think that it's somewhat interesting that there's been some buzz that Marlon Mack might be the Cardinals' number 2 back. I think it was very lightly assumed that role would go to Keontae Ingram, but we've got a new coaching staff in Arizona, and they didn't draft Keontae Ingram, so I'm not really interested in James Conner.
Speaking of interest, Calvin Ridley hype is getting out of control. Out of control. Calvin Ridley now goes 27th overall on Underdog, whereas Christian Kirk goes 51st and Zay Jones goes 125th. What the market is saying is that Calvin Ridley is going to be massively better and earn targets at a way higher rate than these other 2 guys. And part of that, I think, has been running back sliding because people are getting scared of these running backs that are holding out or whatever. But also, it's training camp highlights. It's Calvin Ridley looking really fast and really quick and getting open and making dudes look silly in the secondary. I don't really put a lot of stock in that stuff at all. I do prefer Christian Kirk. I do prefer Calvin Ridley to Christian Kirk, but I don't know if I prefer it by 24 picks. Evan, what do you think about Calvin Ridley's recent rise? Have you moved him up year 150 as well?
Yeah, I mean, he's generating a ton of buzz, and Trevor Lawrence was a really good downfield passer last year, and that's Calvin Ridley's game. So I've been looking at the rankings and thinking about moving Calvin Ridley up just at very least to get him closer to his rapidly ascending ADP. But I still have Christian Kirk ahead of him. There was a big-time bond between Trevor Lawrence and Christian Kirk last year that showed up statistically. Christian Kirk isn't just a little, chain-moving slot receiver. Like he can win downfield. He played it a lot outside, probably too much outside in Arizona, but he can do all the stuff. So I'm leaning on that chemistry. But I get it with Calvin Ridley. Like there's a lot of upside there.
Yeah. I mean, you're way behind in the top 150 on Calvin Ridley. Yeah. I agree that the market's gotten completely wild on Calvin Ridley. I'd probably have him a little bit higher. And I do prefer Calvin Ridley to Christian Kirk. I don't know that Christian Kirk ever has like a top 5 fantasy wide receiver season in him. Calvin Ridley, I think, actually does. So that would be the main reason why it'd be Calvin Ridley for me.
Fair point.
Brandon Cooks, we haven't spent like any time on this offseason. Reports out of Dallas are that Brandon Cooks looks really good. And I think that's and he's been there every day and he's been a good soldier, et cetera. Because last year, Brandon Cooks was not a good soldier. He like quiet quit on the Texans, left the team for a while. Didn't look like he was into it, engaged when he was out there. I'm tempted to just throw last season out. And if you do that, he's actually set up pretty well in Dallas. I actually think Dallas is going to be pretty pass heavy. And I know people think Mike McCarthy is a boomer. Their personnel is set up for them to be very pass heavy, is Dallas. And so I kind of like Brandon Cooks where he's been going in the 80s or so. Did you see the reports on Brandon Cooks and what do you think about his outlook for this year? Again, we haven't spent like any time on him.
Yeah, I've heard that he looks really, really explosive. And by Mike McCarthy, when he was in Green Bay, I mean, they ran one of the pass heaviest offense in the league, year in and year out with Aaron Rodgers. So, yeah, I've been drafting Brandon Cooks. I mean, I think that his cost is good. It kind of seems like, I don't know, I could see how people see the situation is kind of tough to parse out with CeeDee Lamb there and Michael Gallup being a full year removed from the devastating multi-knee ligament tear. None of the tight ends really stand out. They're going to be in 3 receivers. Luke Schoonmaker hasn't been making any noise. Now he's on one of the injury lists.
Yeah.
Their 2nd round tight end who they overdrafted. I've been taking Brandon Cooks. I mean, and I think they are going to throw the heck out of the ball.
Evan has Brandon Cooks 75th overall. That is ahead of market. I just think Michael Gallup may not be that good. And so I want to bet against Gallup and on Brandon Cooks. Obviously, there's a big price difference there, but I think that's warranted. There was a report, or a tweet, I should say, from an Eagles beat reporter who said that it's mostly been Kenny Gainwell, not DeAndre Swift, getting the work in 2-minute drill. Now, it's very early, but I still think that's significant because if DeAndre Swift is not going to get the 2-minute drill work. Maybe he's not going to get the clear pass down work, the 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 5 plus either. And if he's not getting that, we know Rashad Penny's going to play on base down some. How much work can we project for DeAndre Swift? And so I've had a big fade on DeAndre Swift all summer. I feel good about that. And this report about Kenny Gainwell, obviously we've been very high on Kenny Gainwell as like a 16th round pick, 15th round pick. Also, what did you think of that tweet? Do you think that will be sticky to the regular season, Kenny Gainwell being in there in 2 minutes?
Yeah. I mean, I think that the Eagles coaching staff loves Kenny Gainwell. They trust him in, multiple phases of the game. He has like a clear-cut role. DeAndre Swift is being way overdrafted. He's going to be in the shy away for sure. His receiving projection isn't high, and it's really not high if he's not going to be on the field in 2-minute situations.
Yeah.
Now, when he gets the ball, I think he's going to be effective.
Oh, yeah.
DeAndre Swift has always been efficient. It's just he's not going to get the ball that much, guys.
Yeah.
Not going to get the ball enough. So, no, he's in a void, especially where he goes in drafts.
And speaking of not getting the ball enough, we don't get too much into the weight loss and gain stuff, but generally speaking, I think Evan and I both agree we like to see running backs lose weight, and we like to see wide receivers gain weight if it's needed. And Rashad Penny, who played at 235 or more, 240 in Seattle, said he's down to 230. He's trying to get to 225 for week 1. This is like the Le'Veon Bell stuff. He was just sluggish. He lost a bunch of weight. And all of a sudden, he was one of the best running backs in the NFL. So I just want to put that out there on Rashad Penny losing weight. I think it's a good thing. Evan, would you agree that Rashad Penny getting down to 230, 225 would be better for him?
Yeah, I think he played in the 240s when he was in Seattle. He's a big dude.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a stud too. I mean, if you look at his like just per carry efficiency metrics historically, like he's like on Nick Chubb's level almost. I mean, this dude can run the piss out of the ball. He's in an awesome situation in Philadelphia from a run blocking standpoint and just overall offensive environment standpoint. But he ain't going to catch passes, and we know about his injury history. But I mean, shoot, I bet him 65-1 to lead the NFL in rushing.
Yep. Yeah. Evan was ahead of the market on this. He has DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny back-to-back. Rashad Penny's ADP has been screaming up to the point where I believe before it's all said and done, Penny and Swift might end up being pretty close in ADP. Jerome Ford hurt his hamstring today. We're recording this Monday, August 7th, around 4 p.m. Eastern. Jerome Ford hurt his hamstring today. I just wanted to put out there, I don't know how severe the hamstring issue is, but they did rest him in the Hall of Fame game with all their other frontline players. They did make John Kelly and Demetric Felton play a ton in that Hall of Fame game. I thought Demetric Felton played awesome, and John Kelly played pretty well as well. But just the fact they gave Ford the day off made me think that he is locked. Like they're not even making him compete for that RB2 job. We'll see how it goes on the hamstring. We've been talking about Jerome Ford for a while there, though. Evan, have you moved him up any more lately, or you're probably pretty good with where he's at?
Yeah, I'm good with where he's at. I mean, I've had him. I've taken a good amount of him. I'm getting him at where I have him ranked.
Yep. All right. Oh, one more Browns note. You did make a bump to Amari Cooper in your rankings, which surprised me a little bit. It wasn't a huge bump, but I've gone back and forth on Amari Cooper's outlook for this year. Kind of same thing as Jerry Jeudy, like in that range, Amari Cooper and Jerry Jeudy. I don't have strong conviction around either of those guys, and it is a lot of draft capital. So yeah, I'm curious why you decided to move Amari Cooper up in the latest rankings run.
Well, I know that people hate it when I say this, but I just wanted to have him ahead of the guys that I moved them ahead of. And I also wanted to have him in a range where like I'm starting to get him, because when I did the Browns team preview, like that was Deshaun Watson's dude, and Deshaun Watson did not play well, but Amari Cooper, you look at the target data from last year when Deshaun Watson was on the field, like he was throwing the ball to Amari Cooper. We had Matt Harmon on the show, and he thought that last year was maybe the best season of Amari Cooper's career.
Yeah.
So I wanted him higher after that stuff. Yeah.
Evan is up to 44 overall on Amari Cooper, which is still like slightly behind market. But yeah, I think I prefer Keenan Allen to Amari and Jeudy, but it's certainly close, and I do prefer Amari to DJ Moore, who I think Evan's a little bit higher on DJ Moore than I am.
Just regarding the Browns offense, I thought it was interesting. I read this morning that there is at least like some concern that Deshaun Watson is not a great fit for Kevin Stefanski's offense. Kevin Stefanski is, Kyle Shanahan tree, like very structure oriented offense. And Deshaun Watson is, a playmaker quarterback who, had so much success in Houston when he was playing outside the design of the offense. And are the Browns going to go super run heavy and try to keep Deshaun Watson a little bit in a box and just, pound the rock with Nick Chubb behind that super physical offensive line? And then you think about, well, there were all kinds of rumors and speculation that the Deshaun Watson acquisition was, primarily the work of the owner, Jimmy Haslam, which he has a history of being kind of meddlesome. So all that it gives me a little bit of pause. I mean, I think that, and I haven't moved Deshaun Watson down the rankings. I know I'm high on him. And I think he might be my highest owned quarterback actually right now, which is a little bit scary if you buy into this concern about his fit within Kevin Stefanski's offense.
I think that's fair. And just like he was so bad last year, and there's a million reasons how you can excuse it away, but he was so bad. I mean, weather, not being there with the team, there's a million excuses that you can have for Deshaun Watson. He also adds Elijah Moore this year, which I think helps. But yeah, it's still a bit scary for me. Like where Deshaun Watson goes, I prefer to wait 2 to 3 rounds and get Tua or Daniel Jones or Dak or Geno, because you can just wait a little bit longer and get those guys. And I'm not sure that their outlook is all that different than Deshaun Watson's. Last one I wanted to hit on was this Ezekiel Elliott situation. Rumors are heating up a little bit on Zeke. Jeff Howe reporting that the Patriots, Cowboys, and Jets are the main suitors for Ezekiel Elliott. Now, Ezekiel Elliott, I mean, good in short yardage, good in pass protection. I'm not sure he's that good in anything else at this point in his career. How would you feel about Ramondre or Pollard or Breece if Zeke signs? It's not a great thing, I don't think, but I think it could certainly be worse. Like signing, someone who's actually like legit good, like Dalvin Cook to me would be worse than Ezekiel Elliott, even though I don't think Dalvin Cook is that good. But yeah, anyways, how are you thinking about the Zeke rumors right now?
I just think that Ezekiel Elliott's not very good anymore. Yeah. So
like if Zeke signed with the Patriots, how much do you think you'd dock Ramondre?
Not much.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. We've covered a lot here. There's been a lot of news. There's been a lot of rankings changes. If you want to see Evan's full top 150 or our top 300s for 24 different formats, be sure you have Draft Kit or Draft Kit Pro. Preseason is back later this week, 4 big-time slates. Man, they're going big. Another $50K to first on DraftKings for the 2-game slate on Thursday night. Preseason subscribers, I'll be on the show with Cody on Thursday. For Evan. For producer Luke. For Jerry, the most beautiful beast in the world, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.